Huge fight this weekend. We have Khamzat Chimaev versus Nate Diaz. Can Nate Diaz pull this off? Let's go over some statistics here and figure out the best option for Nate to do this. So first, their records, right? We have Chimaev at 11-0 and Diaz at 20-13. Now, Diaz has more losses than Chimaev actually has fights. Chimaev obviously lacks the high-level experience that Diaz has. Even though a lot of Nate's have been losses, Chimaev really only has, one really high-level fight in Gilbert Burns, and then you've got that, at least in the UFC, like that little next tier down would be a couple of his other wins, but definitely not. He's only fought really one top flight guy in the UFC. The odds for this fight. So Chimaev is a minus 1,100 and Nate is a plus 700, at least at the time of this video. Now, just as little as a couple of days ago, it was minus 1,600 for Chimaev, plus 850 for Nate. Now, why is it so lopsided like this? Part of it's due to inactivity. One thing that odds makers really look at is how long it's been since your last fight. That plays a really big factor into it. And it has been... Nate's last fight was last year, but he's only had 3 fights in the past 6 years. So that's huge. Chimaev just coming off that win against Burns. So inactivity definitely plays a big part with Nate in the odds. Also the age. Chimaev at only 28 and Diaz at 37. That's long in the tooth for an MMA fighter. But how can Nate pull this off? So let's take a look at some statistics here and some thoughts. Can Nate submit Chimaev? Well, obviously he's never been submitted. He's never been beat. The last time Nate submitted anybody, 2016 against Conor McGregor. All right, Conor, not known for his ground game or his wrestling, tried to turn into a wrestler, and Nate caught him. He was severely fatigued in that fight. Now, keep that in mind. Conor, even though it was only the second round, he was very fatigued when Nate caught him in that submission. Can he KO Chimaev? Again, Chimaev's never been KO'd, never been beat. Nate's last KO was against Gray Maynard in 2013. His last win, period, was against Anthony Pettis in 2019. That was by decision. Nate is on a 1-3 streak. 1 win, 3 losses in his last 4 fights. Pettis being that lone win in 2019. So how can Nate win this fight? First, Nate usually doesn't come out and push a pace, and I think that's something he needs to do. I think the more he can get to Chimaev in the press conference and the weigh-ins and in the cage before they start the fight, the more he really gets under his skin, flipping him off, yelling at him, things like that. I think that will play into his favor. Chimaev comes out and really tries to get after it. And that almost came back to haunt him a little bit in his fight with Burns. He fatigued in that fight, and that was only a 3-round fight. This is a 5-round fight. Chimaev has only been to the 3rd round 1 time, and that was against Burns. He's been to the 2nd round 3 times. Once the record or the time of the fight wasn't shown, but the other 2 fights that he ended in the 2nd round lasted only just over a minute into the 2nd round. So this is a guy who's had 11 fights and even less ring time, cage time, than the 11 fights would show. He gets in there and he really goes after it. So Nate can try to draw him into opening up. So I think Nate needs to come out strong, really try to throw. If he gets taken down or he starts taking shots, to rope-a-dope a little bit, right? Try to use what God gave him, I guess you could say, and that is durability. The only drawback to that with Nate is his cuts, right? He lost to Masvidal via cut. He's very tough. He's not going to go anywhere. and he needs to use that to his advantage. He needs to rope-a-dope a bit and play cautious while letting Chimaev overtax himself in this fight. I think he needs to talk shit to him the whole fight, really get him to open up, and Nate needs to stay on that gas pedal. He needs to take him into territory that Chimaev has never been. He needs to get him into that late third, fourth, fifth round and really start to open up. He needs to keep his jab going. He needs to keep techniques going and talk shit to him the whole time. I think that's pretty much his only opportunity. Like I said, Chimaev's only been to that third round once. Obviously never been to fourth or fifth round. And Nate has been the distance, whether it be 3 or 5 round fights, 14 times. That is the one area he needs to try to exploit to win this fight. Do I think he will be able to do it? Absolutely not. I think the odds makers have it, right on target. But Nate is always entertaining, and if he comes out and does what I think he should do, which is talk shit and Stockton slap, flip him off, do all those things to really get under his skin, even in a losing effort, that should be a pretty exciting fight for everybody. So we'll see what happens this weekend, and if it's a good fight, I will do a review on that as well.